Welcome to Top of Search with Robyn and Abe, where we talk about e-commerce, Amazon, and more.
Welcome to the Top of Search podcast. I'm sure that you've been hearing a lot about AI. And one of the things that has been a subject of conversation is, will AI be able to replace agencies? Today, we want to talk about what AI can do and what AI can't do, so you can be a little bit clear about how to make the best decisions going forward for your business. I know that I use AI within our agency in very specific ways, and I believe that Abe does as well.
Yeah, we definitely have not fully jumped on the AI bandwagon. We haven't turned everything into a bunch of robots. We use it in certain spots. In certain spots, it helps us a lot. And in other things, it's like absolutely a minefield or a swamp of wrong outputs. And knowing where you can use it well and knowing where it's not ready for prime time is definitely going to be helpful.
And I think the other thing too is that you have to know where you can trust AI and where you really need to supervise it. There's some things that AI does well and that can really help you. We're going to kind of walk through some different spaces. So I don't know, do we want to start with maybe images?
Sure. I think let's start out with the things it can do. And then maybe we'll talk about the things it can't do. And probably some of those things are both things it can and can't do. Images is a perfect example. So it's funny because as we were talking about what we're going to record today, once we started to talk about images, I was talking about the way we can use images, and you are very much focused on the way you can't use images with AI as the resource. Do we start out with the good or do we start out with the challenges? Let's start.
Yeah. So I think the reason that I can be a little negative on the images is because we work with a lot of large brands with tight brand guidelines and legal. But let's start with talking about how it can be used, because I think if you're looking to just generate some images, putting like a background behind an image, maybe doing some simple things, then AI can be helpful. And, you can create some images that really can help enhance your listings and social media as well.
Yeah. So one of the things which has always been a challenge for smaller brands and smaller companies is getting high quality images into their listings. Hiring somebody for a photo shoot can be very expensive. Hiring the highest quality graphic designers can be tough. Finding people who are very creative in terms of what they're going to put into an image can also be tough. And here is a place where AI can help a lot. For people who are resource challenged, it definitely levels the average person up as long as they work with the right scripts. And this is going to be the big caveat. If you don't have the right scripts, you are going to come out with horrible content. But if you do have the right scripts, which is not too tough to create.
I think you mean prompts, right?
Yes. I use them interchangeably, but yes, thank you for the correction. As long as you have the correct prompts, you will get great output. So for example, you can use AI to create pretty good lifestyle images. And if you don't have any lifestyle images, a decent one is much better than none. You can use it to create close-ups of images. You can use it to touch up images pretty well. And one of the things that we like is moving an image from a moderate quality photograph into a rendered style image can definitely help with conversions. It's something that we see in a lot of categories, and it does a pretty good job of that. Now, there are definitely places where it's not great, and I think this is the place where you focus a lot more.
Yeah. So, if you have a brand that has, one thing I will say that AI can be helpful is if you're trying to develop a brand style guideline, there are tools and things on the internet that will help you say, okay, this is our primary color. Here's the alternate colors. Because as you're developing your brand, you really want to make sure that you have a good trade dress and you want to carry that across all of your listings. It really helps with repeat buying and, it develops trust. Really important. So if you haven't done that, I would take the time to develop a brand book, and AI can help you walk through building out a brand book. But when we work with really big brands, we had a brand that was like the white is 2 Pantones off and the kerning on the spacing on just the K is, 4 points off. And so we're working with brands that have developed trade dress. So AI can't meet that requirement. The other big issue that we run into is potential copyright. So I did a presentation for Prosper on using AI, and I said, hey, AI, can you have the Star Wars droids walking down the yellow brick road? And it happily provided me with that. If you don't understand what could possibly be copywritten, so maybe it's using a branded grocery box in the background. Though all of those things can cause issues. And then as it's developing the text, it might not realize, hey, you can't use the word antimicrobial on Amazon without an EPA registration. Or if we say that this bobblehead is a great doll or a toy, that could trigger a CPSC certification, which is the same for copy, like your written copy as well. And then the final thing is that when we're working as an agency with a brand, even if it's a young brand that maybe doesn't even have their brand guidelines put together, we're going to be looking at the overall strategy, and we're going to be looking at what is the internal needs of the customer, what is the thing that they're trying to solve, and how is this going to make their life better, how is this going to make them look good, how is this going to make them feel more confident. And we want to create that in the imagery. And so there was one time where we did use AI to create images, and it was for a product that was adjacent to Dungeons and Dragons, and the images that we need just weren't available. So we checked with the brand, and then we ran through everything. We tried to make sure that nothing was kind of did reverse image searches to make sure that we were not doing anything with copyright, but it takes a lot of supervision. The other thing is that AI just feels wrong. It's a lot of it's similar to the way that bad Photoshop feels wrong. The lighting and the shadows and the proportions can really tell you if something is Photoshop. So I know we all fixate on the 6-finger thing. It's getting a lot better, but there's still little pieces that are wrong. John Lawson today posted an image of a refrigerator, and he had, a bunch of stuff in the refrigerator, but it put cookies and pancake mix inside the refrigerator. So sometimes there are things that it's just AI just doesn't know. So it will kind of cause these issues that could either cause customer complaints, where maybe it makes the proportions look wrong, especially, or it could cause an issue with messaging that doesn't match up with the copy that you've written.
And yes, that is absolutely an AI fail. It does all kinds of things wackadoodle. There's no question about it if you're not on top of it.
But if you just want to say put my product on a blue background or put my product in a kitchen, just make sure that if you're using it and supervising it, and really look at it with a critical eye, especially shadows, proportions, layers, where people should be in relations, those can help make things seem more realistic. So it's definitely, provides something for small brands that can't afford an agency. Canva's been coming out with some really great tools. So there's definitely things to use there, but really be cognizant of copyright issues and making sure that you're maintaining a style guideline, which AI is not always the great at maintaining things from one image to the next.
Yeah, it's funny because almost by definition, the people who need AI for the most basic images will not catch the things that you just described. And the people who do need that have the resources to not need AI the other way. They're the ones who can use artisans to create every piece of content. But yeah, so both things are true. It will get you past the ground floor, but it will not get you to the top floor.
It's funny because on our last staff meeting, we would bring on a couple new clients, and one of our operations manager was went to the creative team and was like, well, can we just hire a couple more graphic designers? And me and the creative director were both like, no, it takes 6 months to onboard somebody, a good graphic designer, to be able to consistently do Amazon images the way that they need to be done. So it takes a while. So if you're struggling, know that's, it's something that takes a lot of expertise to get right. And I think we can probably just kind of bridge that into copy. We do use AI as we're starting to write titles and bullets a lot more than we do with images, because it gives us more ability to edit. I don't know if you have thoughts on using AI to write copy or not.
So, oh boy, this is also both sides of the fence type of issue. So we love AI for starting us off. I can tell AI, hey, here are several high converting listings. We want to create a listing for our product. Here are the keywords we want to focus on. Make sure those keywords are in the first 1,000 characters and give me 5 bullets. It will be 85 to 90% of the way there. And we'll work on revising that last 10%. Most people cannot get to that 90% on their own, that first 90%. So even if you're not good at tightening up that last 10%, you are still 90% of the way there. But yes, it'll make weird grammatical errors. It will speak in 1890s Victorian English sometimes. It will use references that nobody knows about. So it gets you started. It doesn't get you all the way there. But as a starting tool, amazing. It saves us enormous amounts of time just getting that foundational stuff going.
When we first started using AI, I would say probably 4 years, I don't know. I'm guessing on the years. Several years ago, it was post-COVID, but it was, it was more than 2 years ago. And we started using it kind of at a basic level for copying. What we would say is we'd give it kind of, this is the information about the product. Here's what the customer, here's the idea of the customer. Here's the formatting, use this kind of tone. And it would give us some bullets. And we never really used those bullets. What we did is we used that as a place to start from. Now we have like a more in-depth process where if you're, one of the things that you might not know to use AI for copy is to use custom GPTs. There's also a tool called Character.AI. If you wanted to develop a character around your customer avatar and then use that to ask the question, you're going to have to train it a little bit first, but it can be helpful as you're developing marketing information. But now we kind of start with developing the internal needs. We develop the call outs. We have the AI create a whole bunch of call outs for the capital letters that are at the beginning of each bullets. And then we align that with the features. And then we kind of use AI to fluff those up. And then we go through with a human eye and edit and change to make sure we're maximizing keywords. So we're using AI to get us partway there, but knowing that we need to use things like we have an internal tool that helps us identify flagged keywords. So there's certain words that we don't want to use in Amazon unless it accurately describes the product. So if you do have a pesticide, you should use pesticide words. You should say that it deters pest or that it deters molds, as long as you have the documentation to prove that. And if you don't have the documentation to prove that your pesticide is safe, then you should not list it. But if you're working on copy, it can get you a good amount of the way there. And then you're going to need to make sure that you're really looking at it with a critical eye. The other thing is that sometimes people will take what ChatGPT or Claude to say as gospel. There have been many times where I've asked it a question and it's given me the wrong answer. So we always want to, trust but verify. So you could say, hey, write me a listing for this hamster cage. And it comes back and says that it's great for mice, but mice are smaller than hamsters. And so mice will get out of those cages, right? So you really need to know your product, how it's used, how it should not be used, and looking at that voice of the customer. If you already have that product, to make sure you're writing to those things that are negative as well as to the positive things in your copy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely something where you have to be super aware of the correct ways to use it.
We had another client that was, we looked at like competitor images and it was like a steel industrial wire. And I was like, well, a lot of people are using pictures of zip lining. And he's like, I know that people use our product potentially for that, but we don't want the liability of saying that this is good for that, because if it snaps, then we could be liable for that. So the other thing to consider is, is AI saying something, a use for your product that might not be either appropriate or could be dangerous. So AI might look at other listings and say, this bullwhip that you use for ranching is also great in the bedroom. But if somebody uses it in the bedroom, they could get really hurt. So we want to think about these things to make sure that you're really considering and looking at, sometimes AI doesn't understand the uses of things and considering that. And that's true for images and copy.
Yeah. So what's our next AI use case?
Well, I think the first place that people were really talking about AI in Amazon was product, like the advertising tools that was like AI is going to solve all of your advertising issues. I think you and I both, anytime we see one of those AI tools come through, most of the time things are gone pretty far sideways. So they can work. They're kind of like images. They can be better than nothing, but when they don't work, they really don't work.
Yeah. AI is definitely not replacing a good ad manager anytime soon. So there are sort of two places where AI lives with regards to advertising. The first place it lives is in software for managing PPC. A lot of software that exists today claims to use AI for all of the changes they make in an account. And I can tell you now that almost to a T, AI software does not do better than we would do manually. And it certainly doesn't do better than we would do with even a little bit of assistance from the right software. So at best, it gets you to average performance. It certainly does not make you own the field. You are certainly not the super winner. You are certainly not owning the marketplace. There are too many moving parts. There are too many things that still need human consideration. There are too many wild cards that it simply can't take into effect properly. So it's got a long way to go with regards to that. Now, that said, it does help us with a lot of things. It does help us with generating some reports. It does help us with getting data together. There are times where we can ask it a question and we'll get interesting answers. It still needs interpretation, but it can be useful there as well.
I think we kind of are aligned on that. So we use AI, one, for data analysis ideation, and then we, check the data, obviously, check the summarizations. But then we also use it for we actually prefer rule-based tools. So instead of using an AI tool that's supposed to solve all your problems and you're not supposed to have to think about it, because let's say things go really, really well with that AI tool and you want to mimic what happened on another product or another product extension, you're not going to really understand the strategy to be able to duplicate it. And if things suddenly go wrong, you're not going to understand the strategy that the AI might be using enough to stop it from going wrong. So where we use AI is we use AI to look at all of this data here. I provided a CSV. Can you tell me where you're seeing the potential dip in sales would be? Or can you give me a summary that I can use in a client email? So here's the data. I'm going to outline it. Nate, who does most of our advertising relationships with clients, he's great, but he can also sometimes he can oversimplify things or get way too far into the weeds. So sometimes he'll use AI to kind of fluff up the email or to make it so to kind of use it as a place to start. Because sometimes I find that people on our teams, they get stuck on where to write the email, like how to start. If they have an AI version of the summary of the data, they can go through and edit that information, make sure everything's correct. And that's easier and faster for them than starting from zero.
Yeah, exactly. So putting that comparison in is definitely a really good starting point. One of the ways that we actually love using AI is for ideas. There are a lot of times when we will want suggestions. So one perfect example is I have a client who every time they get into a new product category, they need a brand name for their new product category. They are continually expanding their product line. They're continually expanding their verticals. And every time they do it, we've gotten into the habit of saying, hey, ChatGPT, you already know our existing group of brand names and brand focus. If we're coming out with a new product line, this is what the product line is going to include. Come up with a cool name for our brand. The names that it spits out are genius. In some cases, they are inspired. And one thing I love is that as ChatGPT and as the AI tools have gotten more advanced, they can actually check domains at the same time. So they'll tell us what domains are available for the brands it's suggesting. So it's great at giving us suggestions. It's great at being a sort of buddy as we try to figure things out.
Yeah, we use it a lot for ideation. So if I'm trying to, expand on things or get different variations. So for example, with the call outs on the image or with the copy, then we might say, hey, give me 27 call outs for this particular internal need that we're trying to target in a bullet. And then we'll, you say, okay, can you give me more like this? Give me more like that. That's actually how we got the name of this podcast is we started, okay, this is the thing. Now give me more like that. Give me a little less like that. And so you can kind of get to a lot of ideation that way. So I think it's really great for that. I think it's great for summarizing. The other way that I use AI is when I'm writing articles, I will outline exactly what I want to say. I will record the outlining using Otter. And then what I'll do is I'll go to Claude and I'll say, I want you to use these references as my style voice. And I would like you to only use the information that's in the recording here to generate an article. And then I go through and edit the article. It's pretty heavily edited. It's usually not very much the same, but it's a lot faster. So what used to take me 6 hours might now only take me 2 hours.
Wow. If it still takes 2 hours, I would be daunted. I want AI to finish everything in a minute. And if it takes longer than a minute, I think I'm not running it right.
So I kind of look at it kind of like if I was going to have a ghostwriter, they're going to come back and we're going to need to edit it together. So, and what I'm writing for Search Engine Journal and Search Engine Land. So I want to make sure that it's, our best work, right? So I think that's part of it. But I think that it's a great place to get ideas from. But I find that oftentimes it will say things that aren't true or it misunderstands things. Or even if it took it only from the recording and it was good, it didn't try to borrow from anything else, that I still find that sometimes it will misunderstand what I meant because it doesn't have the full background of working in Amazon day and night. So you do have to go back and, the same will be true if it's writing a blog post for you or a social media post for you, or if you're a brand owner and you're trying to get it to write, descriptions, even for your Shopify store, you want to make sure that you take the time to really understand your customer and make sure you're using the language of your customer. And that's where AI can kind of break down sometimes is it's not good at holding a lot of information. So you want to, you can even cross-reference it. So Fred Valles, I've talked about his presentation that he did on using AI a couple of times, but he uses one AI to check for technical accuracy, one to be like a devil's advocate, one to look for grammar, and then has them go through things. So you can layer AI to make it smarter. But the other thing is you want to think about is how many, if you're writing one title and bullet for one product, it might not be worth the time to try to get the perfect prompt for an Amazon listing. It might be fast for you to say, give me some ideas and some tips, and then I'm going to give you back, I'm going to edit it, and then you say, how can I make this better? Rather than trying to get that perfect prompt that might take somebody, 5 or 6 hours. In that time, you could have hired somebody really good to write your titles and bullets.
So this leads to one of the other tips it took me way too long to figure out. I mean, I figured it out for a long time at this point. But one of the things that people should really realize is you should be asking ChatGPT to create your prompts for you. ChatGPT knows all of the details to include in a prompt to get the best result, and you can ask it to fill those things in. This is especially true when it comes to images, because there are things to do with photorealism. There are things to do with lighting and lenses and, aspect ratios and daytime and lights and all kinds of things like that. So many details that most people will have no idea about. But when you tell AI to say, hey, here's a reference picture, create an image for me with all the details you need to get me to an image that looks like this, it will give you 240 words in your prompt, and you will get an image that looks like what you want. So using AI to help you use AI is almost like the ultimate hack that a lot of people don't realize. So many people I've said this to, their eyes open up and they go, oh my God, that's actually smart.
But the thing that you want to remember is you want to balance that with your strategy. So the thing that AI can't help you with is to understand, all right, we're going to, for advertising, for example, we're going to be on Oprah's favorite things. And so we need to make sure that we're managing inventory, or we're looking at running out of inventory. Let's pull back on the ads on this product, even though it's meeting its KPIs, because we want to keep the inventory there for longer because we don't think we're going to be able to restock soon. And we'd rather, tighten the KPI so we can make more profitability, have a higher level of profitability before we sell out. So there's going to be a lot of things like that, or even projecting it's better for us to slow down the sell-through rate than pay the low inventory fee, or, at this point, advertising this product to try to move this stale image is going to be less profitable than just pulling it back or disposing of it. So there are some things that AI is not, and I actually asked Claude, I said, do you believe that AI can replace Amazon agencies? And it basically said that the AI is transforming how you would work in Amazon, but the agencies provide expertise in marketplace strategy, and that AI is really good for data analysis and advertising, like identifying patterns that humans might miss. But agencies offer strategic problem solving and relationship management. So it recommends a hybrid approach, which I was like, wow, that's kind of exactly what I was going to say. And the other thing to think about is, what AI model are you using? Making sure it's the right AI model. Last week we had Ritu on, and she talked about some different models. So making sure you're in a model that works for the needs that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it definitely needs to, it assists for itself. And that's the key. But yes, also the balance between human and AI. AI is not the be all and end all. It just is a really good assistant. It is a great tool. So what other things do you use AI for? I mean, I can tell you one thing that we really like it for is communications. Helping with tone on communications is an amazing thing that AI is great at. Sometimes we want to be stern when we communicate something, and sometimes we want to be very comforting. And in each of those situations, you can take the raw information and ChatGPT will turn it into a letter that is psychologically appropriate for the moment.
I mean, I know somebody that works with programmers in India for her day job, and she will say, how can I say this in a way that will be well received by a team of programmers in India? And she said that that's been pretty successful in helping, because it understands the large language models from, being able to see what was written by that demographic versus her demographic. So she said that that's been pretty helpful.
Yeah, agreed. Do you have any interesting ways that you use AI?
I was just using Claude yesterday to help me write a Python script we're doing a cleanup project for Walmart, where we're working with a large brand to help them like consolidate duplicate listings and, clean up listings, and then make sure that the UPCs are kind of reserved for them. We're getting the products that are not on Walmart. And so we had Claude start to work on writing us a script for some of the research that we need to do for the in-depth audit that we're doing. I've used Claude to verify. So I have somebody that writes scripts for us, Python scripts for us, process for automation. And I've used AI to say, tell me what the script does. Is there anything malicious in the code? Or explain to me why this piece isn't working, or how I can explain to him or why this is hard. So I can definitely use it for that. Sometimes I even use it for formulas where I'll say, I'm like, I feel like this is what I need to tell a brand. I just want to make sure that the formula that I'm using is correct. So I'll give it an example. We use it to ideate for titles and bullets. We don't really use it for images very much, and not really for videos, but we're open to that as it gets closer. Just with the copyright concerns, we kind of have stayed away from that as an agency just to kind of protect our brands.
Interesting. So it looks like it's almost, you use it in a very technical way to keep you on track and to basically make sure that nothing goes wrong almost.
And, Nate does use it to use it to kind of like change the tone of his emails and things along those lines. We might ask it for ideas, or when I use it when I'm writing articles and marketing material. So I think that there is a use for it. And, we use it in little ways, or even just like Grammarly, where it kind of gives you some better ways to rephrase things to make it simpler or to make it have the right tone. I think that it's really great for that. But I tried to use Operator for this project with Walmart cleanup. I was like, well, let me try Operator. And I banged my head against the keyboard for several hours, and then ended up having to go to the script writer and say, I need you to write a script for this, because Operator kept saying, this is a long, tedious task. I don't want to do this. And so
Did it actually say that?
It was like, this is a slow and tedious task. Would you like us to write a script instead? But I had tried it to write a script. And because I'm on Mac and because it's a complicated process, it was not able to produce what I needed to do. And I don't usually write code in OpenAI anyway. So it wasn't really what we needed at the time. So I think that sometimes you can spend more time trying to get AI to do something it's not really ready for than to do it correctly. And I think that one of the things that people talk about AI, I think we talked about this for 322, is that, it's not just about, it's using AI where it's good. And then it's using things like if-then statements like Zapier and Make and macros and like rules, like a rule-based tool like PPC Profit or Optimizer or something along those lines to help with the repetitive tasks. And then using AI for things like summarization, ideation, those kind of places of analysis are really what it's really great at.
Yeah. For a person who's running their own brand, somebody who's maybe listening to this and they're not a sophisticated user yet, where would you suggest are the places they should immediately start using AI?
That testing out some custom GPTs or Character.AI is a good place to play. So you develop, go into Character.AI and say, let's say your product is a bento box. Pretend that you are a mom of 3 kids. You're very eco-conscious. You really focus on making sure your kids have healthy lunches to eat. So you're going to describe that character, and then you're going to train it, and you're going to say, tell me what this customer would think about this. And they might say, oh, she loves plastic straws. And you're like, no. Remember, you're very environmentally conscious, and you train it. And then you could say, hey, now that I've got you trained and you know who you are, tell me is there anything missing in the bullets that you would need to purchase? Or even just starting with a good prompt where you say OpenAI or Claude, here's what, I want to do for my bullets. Can you write me a prompt, and having it do that? I think the copy is the best place to start. I think that the images, there are tools that kind of layer AI in pieces, so you can use Canva and some other AI pieces without just saying, AI, make me something magic. I've used AI for courses that I've done to create images, and just know that it takes a lot of iteration. So you want to be thinking about, is this the fastest way to do this? Or is it that, still a traditional way is still better for what my specific needs are?
So tell me about Character.AI. For somebody who might not have heard of it, I actually only heard about it recently. Is Character.AI built into ChatGPT, or is it a completely different tool? You mentioned it casually and rolled right into it, but most people who are listening only know ChatGPT. They hear AI, and ChatGPT is simply interchanged with it. So tell us a little bit about Character.AI.
I'm not sure what model it's built on. I started using it a couple years ago. I heard about it at PubCon. I think Michael Bonfilis is the one that told me about it. And so it's a separate website, just Character.AI. And there are actually a lot of people use it for their D&D characters, to build out their D&D characters. I have like a CMO character, and I have like a grammar, so you can have all these different characters that you can kind of interact with. And there's some that are already pre-built and shared, and you can create your own as well. So if you've been intimidated by starting with the custom GPT, because it just feels like too much, that might be a place to start and play, just to get an idea. Right now, a lot of people are using it for more social things. Like if you go on their website right now, it definitely looks, there's like an anime character on the top, but it gives you an idea of how it works, and something that you can play with. But it is something, if you're already playing for ChatGPT, custom GPTs can be a great place to start as well.
So with custom GPTs, is that going to be something that the average user can create?
Yeah, they're not that difficult. And, you can, if you can watch a couple videos, you can even ask ChatGPT more about it and how to build one. You say, this is what I'm trying to build. So I'm trying to build like, somebody around my customer avatar, or I'm trying to, write a pitch for an investor. Can you help me build a character for an investor so that I can run my pitch by them, and then they can tell me where they see the flaws. Now, you want to take everything that it says with a grain of salt, because it might not be right, but it's a good place to start.
Awesome. That's definitely a lot. It's interesting because when I asked you the question, I was thinking these will be a quick thing somebody can do right afterwards. But the truth is, the best way to use AI properly is actually to set aside a little bit of time and invest that time in learning how to use it. Even if you're not going to use it in some crazy innovative way, for any type of thing you'd want to do, spend a little bit of time to learn how to use the product properly. Whether you're doing driver's ed for driving a car, or whether you're doing any other leveling up for using a thing properly, whether it's a tutorial of a video game or anything that you do on day one, you should be doing that with ChatGPT also, or the AI tools, and exploring what tools exist, exploring how they're a little bit different from each other, and especially creating a custom GPT is going to be really the right place to start. It's funny, I asked you that question about, is it tough to create a custom GPT? And I actually have my own little story about it. So at Prosper, there's a competition called a hackathon, and they run it every year. This year, they gave a specific challenge, and the challenge was to create 2 custom GPTs. And we had an hour to do it, a little bit more than an hour. Now, I actually was one of the table captains. I was going to be like a team leader in this competition. And up until this hackathon, I had never really created any custom GPTs at all. I just looked at it as a very time intensive thing. It was a thing for other people to do, and I would just utilize what other people created, but I had never built one myself. And the idea of creating one was very anxiety inducing, but I was committed to being there, and I was committed to seeing it through. And literally on the spot, they gave us an 8-minute tutorial on how to create a GPT, and our team created 2 GPTs in an hour, both of which were pretty detailed in terms of what they did. So if you can think of a situation where you are plugging in a bunch of numbers or trying to do some piece of analysis, and you do it every day, creating a GPT to take that off of your hands and to save money is unbelievably useful.
And I would pick one thing to start with. So try not to jump from ChatGPT to custom GPTs to Claude. Pick one thing, master it. Think of, you can even ask one of the AI tools which one is the best for you. Claude tends to be better for things like programming, more formal, more well thought out. ChatGPT can be a little bit more surfacey, but it's faster. So you not being able to get what they want out of AI is not that AI can't do that in one fell swoop right now. It's not going to be bippity boppity boo. It's going to be kind of like one more person in your workshop to help.
Right. Use it as a team member instead of replacing your team. That's probably a good way to put it.
And you can use it for things like, hey, here's my advertising reports. Can you give me 3 thoughtful questions to ask my advertising agency on our next call so I can better understand X? So you can use it to definitely help you, even if you're not using it to run the pieces. You can say, I'm very concerned that our sales are down. Can you look at this and see if you can identify the problem? Now, it may or may not be able to always identify it, but it at least can give you some ideas to start the conversation if you're feeling like you're not getting the answers that you need.
All right. So let's sum it up. AI is definitely good at certain types of tasks. It is good at leveling you up way past a starting point of 0 or a starting point of square one. Highly technical, and situations where legal might be involved, be really, really careful and spend the time to dig into how to use AI properly. because what you put in very much guides what you get out, and a little bit extra effort gets you a much better result. Would that be sort of the rundown on AI for today?
Yeah, I would say, use it as like a tool in your toolbox, but it's not going to be magic. And I think if you can kind of keep it in that thing that it's not going to solve your problems, it's going to help you solve your problems. Then, and then as it changes and iterates, you'll be able to see how can we use that iteration to make our business better. So using it in combination with what your human expertise and the expertise of people that you hire can be really, really helpful.
Amazing. All right, bring us home.
We hope that this conversation about AI has been helpful and that you've enjoyed listening as much as we've had recording it. And we hope that you have a wonderful week.
Have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the Top of Search podcast. Have a burning question you would like answered or a topic you would like featured in a future episode? You can submit it at topofsearchshow.com. If you love the episode, subscribe and leave a review. Each month, we'll be selecting one reviewer to win a one-on-one call with your choice of Abe or Robyn. Winners will be announced at the end of the first episode of every month.